Hello there. Today's recipe is going to be so delicious. It's definitely gonna be a keeper, as my husband would say. We have a little joke between us. Anytime I try a new recipe, he's always the judge, and I always ask him, babe, is this a keeper or not? And he'll say, yes, keep it, or no, don't ever fix it again. But this one is gonna be a keeper. And if you have not gone to my blog yet, cookitfor2.com, and subscribed, you're definitely going to want to do that, because you're going to want to have access to this recipe and all my other recipes and pictures and stories and all kinds of good stuff. But what we're going to do today is, it's a perfect recipe when you're cooking for two. It's the perfect proportions, and it's just quick, it's easy, and there's not a whole lot of ingredients. And the name of the recipe is Creamy Chicken Alfredo Flatbread. Oh my gosh, just say that. The title like makes my mouth water. And what we're gonna do is, we're gonna combine this tender seasoned chicken with a creamy Alfredo sauce. And one of the things that makes it so creamy is that it's loaded with Parmesan cheese. Which is so good. And then we're going to take that and we're going to put it on top of a golden crispy flatbread. That's what we're going to do today. And the other thing that I did want to say is, this is a great recipe to have in your recipe box or wherever you keep them, because you can serve this for an appetizer, you can serve it for a lunch, or you can do what we're going to do tonight, and I'm going to serve it for our supper. Okay, so let's get started into this delicious recipe. The first thing that I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna start with the Alfredo sauce. Now, there are a ton of jarred Alfredo sauces. There's refrigerated Alfredo sauces, all in the grocery store. But when I have time and when I can, I like to just make my own. It's really simple to make, okay? And this is something, if you kind of get this under your belt, you know how to make a good Alfredo sauce. You will be surprised at how many times you will use this recipe. And if you're in a hurry, you can whip some of this up, throw it over some pasta, and you have a meal. And you're done, and everybody will love it. So here we go. I've got a medium saucepan, and I'm gonna put it on about medium-high heat. And I have, in the pan already, I have about 4 tablespoons of butter. I may have just a tad bit more, because I just had some little, extra butter ones that I had cut off, and there was just the ends left, and I just kind of threw them all in there to get rid of them, because you can never have too much butter, right? So that's what I've got going in my pan. And as soon as my butter gets good and melted, as you can see, I have already mise en place. I've gotten all my ingredients ready. Got them all together here to just pop them in when it's time. And so I do have my garlic press, which I absolutely love. And then I have about 4 cloves of garlic. It just kind of depends. If you're a big garlic fan, this may be plenty. And if you're not, then, definitely cut back on it. And it kind of depends on the size of them too. So my butter is sizzling away over here, but you want to let your butter go ahead and get good and melted before you add in this garlic. So I'm gonna let that go a little bit. All right, if you watched me very often, then you know I love my garlic press and I use it a lot, okay? So you can see, you just put the garlic right down in the little well there, and then I'm gonna take it and just squeeze it right over my pan. Boom, there it is. So easy. Okay, then you're just going to take that out and you put in your next one. Okay, that in there. If they're small enough, then sometimes, you can even put 2 cloves in at a time. And I love it because you can see how much garlic it gets out of there. Oh my goodness. It really gets all of that good meat out of that garlic clove. All right, now we've got our garlic added. So what we're gonna do is we're going to just stir this around. We're gonna let this cook on low. We're gonna do that for about maybe 3 or 4 minutes. But you wanna make sure that you keep that moving around because you do not want to let this sit long enough that it will burn your garlic, because we've all done that before and that is not good. We'd have to pour it out and start over. You want this to cook long enough just to where your garlic kind of starts to get a little soft and tender. Mine is still cooking a little fast, but I've got it on my big hefty burner here, and so it's about as low as I can get it. The garlic is looking really good. It's getting a brown color to it, and so I'm gonna go ahead and add in my cream. Now, you want to be very, very careful when you do this because this is a very hot pan and this is cold to semi-cold cream. I've had it sitting out for just a little bit. So when you pour it in, you want to start out very, very slowly, okay? So then you're just going to go ahead and add your cream in very slowly. And then you want to make sure that you have your whisk ready because you want to get that whisking as quick as you can. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let this come to a boil. So I had turned my burner down, so I'm going to turn it back up just for a little bit so that, you know, it starts to boil before tomorrow. But get it to a boil, and then once it gets to a boil, I'm going to turn it back down because I want it to just simmer very, very gently for probably about 5-6 minutes. But you want to keep moving it around because you do not want that cream to scorch. So we want to keep moving it around. You can let it sit a little bit, but don't walk off and leave it because we want it to come to a boil. So we kind of have to let it sit just a minute or it will never get to a boil. And you know, you don't need to let it keep boiling. Just as long as around the edges comes to a good little boil, then you can go ahead, you can decrease that temperature, okay? And then you want to let this simmer for about 5 or 6 minutes. And the goal in this is you want this mixture to thicken up, okay? It's gonna get a little thicker after we add the cheese, but we do need to get it thicker than this for right now before we add the cheese. And so a couple of little tips that I did want to give you while this is thickening is that when you're doing an Alfredo sauce, any kind of a cheese sauce like this where you're using cream, okay, you really don't want to do any substitutions here. And what I mean by that is don't try to get like a light cream or maybe even try to use milk or a 2% milk. When you do your Alfredo sauce, you want to use the real thing. You want to have heavy cream as your base. If you try the lighter creams or milk, it's not going to thicken up good, and then you're going to have to add a thickening agent to it, and it's just a mess. So the best thing to do is go ahead and stick with the regular heavy cream. All right? This could just be like a little splurge that you're doing because you're getting the full fat in there. Now also, the other thing is when it comes to your Parmesan cheese, most of the time I use, you know, fresh cheese and I grate it myself because I do not like to use packaged cheese at all. That is no secret if you've watched me very long. And I won't even get into why, okay? But it's not good. Now, just like regular cheddar cheese, whatever, Parmesan is the same. If you have a chance and if you can, okay, here's a good example here. My cream is really boiling, okay? So just take it off the heat and I'm gonna put it back down. Everything's good, I just don't want it to scorch, but you don't wanna let it keep foaming and boiling like that. Like I said, this burner is so hot, it's really hard to keep it at a low temperature. I may even have to kind of pull it to the side just a little bit because it was boiling just a little bit too much. But now I think we've got it under control. We've got a good simmer going. So back to our cheese, all right? Every chance you can, get the block of cheese and grate it yourself. It's really not that hard. I've got a grater right here, and I have most of my cheese already grated, but I wanted to just show you, okay? This is not hard at all. And if you let your cheese sit out just a little bit, then it makes it a little bit easier, especially the Parmesan, because it's pretty hard. But anyways, it is so much better for you to grate it yourself, all right? And you can test it out and try it yourself. The end result is always better. It's gonna be thicker, it's gonna be creamier, and the taste is even gonna be richer when you use the fresh block of cheese, because those packaged shredded cheeses have had so much stuff added to them, sometimes they really don't even melt good. So, okay, I'm getting off my soapbox, gonna get back to the cooking, but I just wanted to point those few things out to you because like I've said before in my videos, you know, when you take the time to cook a meal and you're serving it to your, you know, your hubby or your special someone, then you want it to be good. You want it to be the best that it can be. You want it to be something that when they take a bite, they're not just like, but they're like, oh my gosh, this is good. That's what I want anyways. So sometimes it's just those little things that can put your dish over the top. Our cream sauce is just about there. And as you can see, you can tell it's not a huge difference, but it has thickened up a little bit since we started, okay? And that's really has enough thickness to it that we can go ahead and add in our Parmesan cheese and that's gonna thicken it up a little bit more because we don't want it too thick because, you know, we want it to be pourable. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna add in our freshly shredded Parmesan cheese, all right? And then again, take your whisk. You just wanna gently whisk that and get that incorporated. And we're gonna let this go for a few minutes, you know, just long enough until that cheese gets all melted. And if it still needs to have a little bit more thickness to it, then you can just let that cook just a little bit longer. And we're also gonna add some salt and pepper. Definitely need to add salt and pepper. Be careful with your salt because your Parmesan cheese is very salty. So you don't want to get too much. You can always go back and add more, but I would be generous with your pepper. And also, you know, you can do this or not. It's totally up to you, but it's also a good idea. A lot of times when I'm doing a cream sauce, I love to add just a tad bit of nutmeg. It just kind of, you know, if you've ever taken a bite of something and you're like, what is that spice? Okay, that's kind of what nutmeg does to a cream sauce. So I like to just add just a touch to my cream sauces. All right, I'm gonna give that a stir, and this is looking absolutely fabulous. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to take a little taste of it. You know, that's really a good idea. When you're making stuff, you gotta taste it, because what if you need to add something to it? Oh my goodness, woo, look at that cheese. That is so good. I'm gonna let it cook for just a few more minutes. Our Alfredo sauce is just about perfect. Now we're gonna move on to our chicken. So we wanna get our burner going to about medium-high heat. I already have some chicken breast tenderloins. They're the small ones. You can see them here. And I love these little plastic mats because I'm able to put this onto my cutting board that I've been using, but I don't have to worry about the chicken contaminating anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and I want to cut these up just into bite-sized pieces, okay? I'm going to put a couple of teaspoons of oil in my skillet. I'm going to get a different knife for my chicken, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these into bite-sized pieces. And you know, my bite-sized piece and your bite-sized piece might be a little different. But remember, as they cook up, they're going to get, you know, a little bit smaller. So okay. You know, I'm really weird about my meat. I do not like that little stuff right there. And I don't like that. I think my oil is pretty heated up, so I'm gonna go ahead. Let's try it out. Oh yeah, definitely ready. So we're gonna put our chicken in here. Toss that around a little bit once I get it all in here. That chicken was a little bit stringy. I used this hand for my chicken. So this hand, I'm gonna take and add a little bit of salt. I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper. Turn my burner down a little bit. And what I wanna do is kind of stir this around a little bit. So I'm gonna let this sit. I'm gonna get my hand washed up really good. I'm gonna let this sit. It's gonna need to cook for about probably 5-6 minutes. What we wanna do is we want that to get good and done. We don't want it to get too brown or burnt though. And if you're not sure about just eyeballing it and knowing if it's good, then you can always use a thermometer and you can just put that in there. And if you've got 165 degrees, then you're good to go. This chicken has browned up so pretty, and it smells absolutely delicious. So it's about time to take this. What we're gonna do is take this out of the skillet, okay? And I'm gonna just transfer it to this plate. And I'm gonna let this chicken hang out with the Alfredo sauce just for a little bit, because we still have another step to do before we're finished. All right, if you remember, I told you to preheat your oven to 400, okay? I'm gonna set that right there where it can kind of stay warm. Preheat your oven to 400, and the reason you wanna do that is because I've got our naan bread out here. And so you are gonna just do exactly what the package directions tell you to do with your bread. I didn't make this, I actually purchased this. If you wanna make yours, then woo, go for it. But today, I didn't. So I've already put a little bit of olive oil on it, and I've kind of, took my little brush and smeared it around, covered it really well. And we're gonna let it sit like that. And then you'll see, once we finish this last step, we'll start building our flatbreads. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna put just a little bit more oil in this skillet, because I'm gonna add our onions to that. And as you can see, I already cut up half of the onion, just for the sake of time. And the one thing I did want to say about these onions is that, let me go ahead and turn my burner on. This recipe does, it calls for purple onions. Well, I call them purple, they say red. That is purple. But anyways, I have issues with these onions. I am a Vidalia onion girl. I love Vidalia onions, and I use them in almost every recipe. But sometimes, like I said, this recipe calls for the red onions. Now, a lot of people say that these onions are sweet. I disagree. I think that these onions are very, very strong. I think they're a lot stronger than most of your other onions. There are so many different kinds of onions, and they do taste different. They cook up different. And so it is important to know, you know, which onion you're using and what kind of outcome you want. But for me, like I said, for the most part, my Vidalia onions work in just about any recipe. I'm adding a little bit of salt, and I'm gonna add some pepper because we want these to get good and caramelized. So we're gonna let those cook away. So what I was saying is, when you pick an onion, you know, your kitchen, you pick the onion that you want. But the one thing that I will tell you sometimes that I do go ahead and go with this purple onion is because just like in tonight's dish that I'm fixing, okay, the food that you eat, it's not just about making it taste good, but you also want it to look good. You know, it needs to be appealing to your eyes when you look at it. So what we have here is we have the base, which is cream, okay? It's the naan bread, it's cream. And then we're gonna have Alfredo sauce. Well, that's cream. Then on top of that, we're gonna put chicken, that's cream. So see, this is one of those times when you really do need these purple onions because they are going to be beautiful. And when you add those on top of all that cream, it's gonna be that pop of color that just sets this dish off. So there again, you know what? You use whatever kind of onion you want. And of course, if you're making this and you don't have a purple onion in the house, don't worry about it. You know, just cook with whatever you have. But if you do pick up one, it really will make a difference in the looks of your dish. We're gonna let that cook for about 5-6 minutes, like I said, because we want all that sugar to release out of these onions and become caramelized. Okay, these onions are beautiful. You can just look at them and you can see how that sugar has come out. They've browned, they've caramelized, and they are beautiful. And they're going to taste fantastic. Okay, so we have come to the end. We're going to start the fun part now. We're going to assemble these flatbreads. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add our Alfredo sauce to our flatbread. Bring this on over here. Okay. Now, you do whatever makes you happy. This Alfredo sauce might be a little bit too thin or runny for you, but for our taste, this is kind of how we like it, because as it cooks in the oven, it's going to thicken up just a little bit more. But you know what? It's yours, your kitchen, you do it your way. If this is a little bit too thin for you, you know, when you're looking at it, just go ahead, cook it a little bit longer. Let it, you know, simmer for just a little bit longer until you get it the consistency that you're going to be happy with. And, you know, we like a lot of Alfredo sauce. So I'm going to make sure there's plenty on here. Oh, that looks so good. Okay, now I'm just going to use my fingers. These might be a little bit big for bite size, but you know, we kind of like them like that. So we're just gonna put those on there. That chicken is so good. Okay, kind of just spread it around. Fill in the little empty spots. And I think that's plenty. Okay. Now the last thing that we're gonna do is we're going to put, I think I'm gonna use some tongs. We're gonna put these beautiful onions on the top. Don't pick up very much at a time, but I like to be able to, you know, kind of place them where I want them. So so that it's not just all piled up into one spot. And you know what? I mean, you could go crazy with this if you wanted to add some mushrooms. You know, mushrooms are really, really good with this. You know, you could even add you some broccoli, some cauliflower. You know, gosh, you can do so much with this one recipe. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put this in the oven only for about 2 or 3 minutes. I just want the naan bread to heat up and get our sauce heated. We want it nice and warm before we add the last little part of our dish. So here we go. Now, while that is cooking, I did want to go ahead and say that, like I said, this is a great recipe to have because it's so versatile. There's so much you can do with it. For instance, you can change the toppings and you can have 10 different ways, 10 different recipes. Instead of using the Alfredo sauce, you could use a tomato sauce. You could go in the direction of a pizza. You could do it more Italian direction and just do like marinara or, you know, pizza tomato sauce, spaghetti sauce, do some basil, some onions, you know, I mean, mushrooms. You could do a barbecue sauce. That chicken, that same chicken that you cooked would be delicious with a barbecue sauce on that naan bread. And so, oh my gosh, hot sauce. You could even do, if you have someone, you or yourself, has a sweet tooth, then you could even make them sweet. They don't have to just be savory. Something that's delicious is to take some apples. You could do apples or pineapples, okay? You just put them a little butter in a pan. You take your sliced apples, peel them, slice them, put those in a pan. You're gonna add a little bit of brown sugar and a little bit of cinnamon and just let those kind of soften up. Make you a little cream cheese mixture to go on your naan bread. Put those apples or those pineapples on top of that, and oh my gosh, it is delicious. Drizzle it maybe with a little bit of honey or something, or just leave the honey off. But those are just a few little ideas for you to just, you know, tuck in the back of your mind, because like I said, this is a great recipe to just really swap it up, and it gives you a whole different taste. Our flatbread has been in there long enough. So, oh my gosh, the smell is killing us. So look how beautiful they are. Oh my gosh, that is so, so good. Okay, here we go. Go ahead and go over here with this one. Let's scoot it around a little bit. Now, we're gonna go to the board with this one. Oh my goodness gracious. Now, the last thing that we're gonna do is we wanna add just a little bit of freshness to this, and also this is another pop of color that's gonna really elevate this dish. What I love to use on this is just arugula. I love arugula. It has that fresh black pepper taste to it. It's so good, and it pairs so well with this. But I was not able to find arugula around me. So what I did was just get like a spring mix, and that's what I'm gonna use. You know, you just kind of have to do the best you can with what you have. It's still gonna be beautiful. It won't really have that peppery taste that I like, but it's still gonna be beautiful, and we're still gonna be adding a little bit of that freshness that I was talking about. Now, if you're not a fan of, you know, greens, then, you know, skip this part. But I love them, and Kyle likes them too, so. I think that's probably gonna do it. I was just excited to share this with you. You know what, as always, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you first of all for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I also hope that you were able to pick up something maybe that you did not know before, something new maybe that you've learned that you can take and use in your kitchen. But right now, we are hungry and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna eat this for our supper. So, Lord bless you. Well, hello there.
It's okay.
Well, you don't have to.